my goal, and I do the business and the event side, my goal is come into the store. Like, I just want people to come in the store and experience it and learn from Julia and our team. And like, you will walk out with something you didn't expect, whether that's a book or an experience or a conversation, like that's going to happen.
We're good? You all ready? You good? Ready? Good? All right, ready? All right, here we go. All right.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Conversation Piece, your place to discover the untold stories of Indianapolis. My name is Patrick. I'm your host, and today we are on location at my favorite bookstore in the city. There are some really great bookstores here in the city as well, and we're going to talk about that. And it's definitely not just because it is within a literal stone's throw from my house, but because the owners are really dope people. And it is said dope people who are my guests today. One is the crafter and curator of this very shop in which we sit, who is passionate about media in all of its forms and is driven to share what they learn with as many people as they can. The other is a serial entrepreneur, who is trying to find some actionable solutions to the climate crisis while also getting people outside and on their bikes. Both are from South Africa and are really cool people, and we're going to chop it up right now. So without further ado, it is my great joy and privilege to welcome Julia Breakey and Jake Budler to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. So the stone's throw, how good is your arm?
It's not that good.
Okay.
It's a flat stone that flies.
Yeah, it's a Frisbee.
It's a Frisbee.
Sure.
And I still don't think I could probably hit my house, but it's pretty close.
I believe in you.
It's pretty close. How are y'all doing?
Thank you for the intro.
Really well. How
Excellent.
are you?
100%. And as far as somebody who's listened to the show, as far as intros go, how did that rank?
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
Dang, already I
Wow.
can tell.
Well,
less than an 8.
I mean,
That was a less than
here's
an
what we're
8.
going to be. We're going to be honest, and that's what you know you're going to get with me. I'm thinking of all the other intros.
I appreciate
I thought it was very good. I think it was well balanced. I haven't heard you doing with two people before. So I think that's probably more difficult. I mean, maybe you have done one, but
I was
There
just
wasn't
thinking,
a
and there was one coming up. That was a surprise.
in that whole thing.
No,
you nailed
that
it.
is
Thank you.
Sure,
Yeah.
yes, but that is no, that's true, and that's the Patrick's minimum.
Okay, yeah. So
So
performance
I appreciate
so
that.
top tier.
versus writing.
No, I had to think about it. I'm not going to lie. I said it was amazing. Like, let me think.
Yeah.
You sit with it. Excellent.
I appreciate that. You guys are awesome. And we talked about this off mic, but I do just want to give context for the viewer and listener out there. I stumbled across this bookstore when we were getting ready to move into our house. And we first came in here and I was like, I'd love to have you guys on this podcast that I do. And that was like 2.5 years ago, I think. You guys are coming up on 2 years. I think it was before you opened that we first met, but I think that's coming up on that anniversary. And we're finally here sitting down in the shop to do this because it's a beautiful place. And so I don't want to start here, though. I want to start with a question I don't think I've ever asked, and you probably talked about it, but I want to get it on record. How did y'all meet?
Oh, high school.
Why
It's
do-
not.
why do we-
Jake
Tell the
doesn't
story.
remember us meeting. We were 14 and he was on his way running around to go flirt with some girls that were older than me, so he didn't really care.
I was, important to know, I was the softball coach. I had games to win.
He was coaching girls a year older because he was an American in South Africa. He
Not
could do what he
relevant.
wanted in the baseball, softball scene because he was more qualified by virtue of being American.
And we did win games.
Right.
And
but
I had practice to get to. So
Yeah.
sorry.
it was just straight up high school. I wish it was more exciting than that.
Then we took, where we got to know each other was taking maths and theater together, which was a fun combination. Yeah, that's how we got to know each other.
We were
Okay.
both super competitive.
Highly competitive, slightly opinionated,
Yeah.
relatively dramatic. So it worked out.
It worked out great.
A great team from
Works
my
out.
perspective. I appreciate you calling you out as American because I did not realize this till I was researching, but you were born in Chicago. And
Yes,
then
yeah.
you grew up
Yeah.
in South Africa. Was there a specific reason why your family?
Born in Chicago,
over?
moved to Cape Town when I was 10,
Okay.
went to school and high school there, got recruited to play baseball at Wabash College, moved here in January, discovered that the winter sucks, especially to play baseball. I went to 5 a.m. practices in a polar vortex, and I was like, this is obviously horrible. So I quit baseball, stayed at Wabash, played other sports, played some club rugby and indoor soccer. And then when I graduated, Julia was going to the University of Cape Town. We decided she was going to move to the States. And we were like, let's go somewhere that we want to go somewhere that we could move anywhere. We wanted to move somewhere we knew some people, had some friends. We're like, let's move to Indy. We'll kick it for a couple of years and we'll go somewhere cool.
Yeah, immigration is really hard. So we wanted to pick a city that I knew and had visited, and that kind of left us with only Chicago and Indy. And Indy was cheaper and closer to where Jake was.
And we had friends here.
And we had friends here.
And I got a job out of school here. And yeah, so we weren't planning on staying. And then fast forward several years, COVID, bought a house, started a business, and we love it. And so we didn't leave.
Yeah. There were a bunch of times in between there where we were like, should we leave the city? And then every time we looked at a city that was like bigger or had more like media opportunities for me, it was just like, oh, our lifestyle is going to drop in quality really quickly. And we just, every time Indy went out, it was like at least 3 times where we were very seriously like, I got a job offer in DC that I turned down just because we were like, but we like it here so much.
I like it. Okay, we're going to get into that. I first have to ask, though, okay, you got how does one get recruited to play baseball at Wabash College while in South Africa?
This is these stories in a rabbit hole. I'll keep it as short as possible.
You asked.
I worked out. You do like tryouts and all that. I worked out with a coach of Northern Illinois University, which, if you know, is a Division I school. It did not end up playing Division I baseball. I was not that good. But he knew the coach at the time at Wabash College, who I had come to the US, done a few of these like kind of workout tryouts things and, showcase things, went back to South Africa. It was in the grade 11, so 11th grade. Went back to South Africa. A couple weeks later, this random dude hit me up like, you should look at Wabash College. And I was like, I have no idea who you are, or what that means, or where that is. Super small world. My mom used to teach English literature at North Central College in Illinois. Okay. And had taught the baseball coach at Wabash at some point.
Interesting.
Like wildly. She was like, I don't remember that guy. I mean, to be fair. So I ended up, fast forward then, I came back, went to Wabash for a weekend, got a scholarship, which is ultimately, I was like, scholarship?
Right.
I'm in.
Yeah.
And then I remember driving from Chicago to Indiana, and I slept in the car on the way, and I woke up in Crawfordsville, and I was like, I'm doing what now? And I'm where? And I had a great time for 4 years. It was amazing. But
was Crawfordsville a culture shock, like getting there? Or was it
absolutely. Okay. I mean, like, I had lived in the States when I was super young. Western Chicago, Aurora is where I was born. And then had like grown up and come of age in Cape Town, which is an amazing city. Yeah, Crawfordsville was a total culture shock. The weather as much as anything, like, I mean, it was miserable walking to practice and it's negative 20 at 4:40 in the morning. I was like, oh my God.
And you're playing baseball too. Like, that's not the weather for it.
Not the weather for it. And Cape Town, like, you play baseball, it's the summertime, it's beautiful, it's fun. And then also, it's Division III, but they want you to play in the summer and you play in the fall. And you're like, I'm not. I'm going back to Cape Town every summer. So I went to South Africa every US summer, and then Julia would come visit me from Monon Bell game to like mid-January.
For 4 years, neither of us experienced a full summer because we would leave.
Yeah, that was
because that was the longest break that we had off. It was the most miserable 4 years.
Well, it worked out.
It worked out great.
Worked out.
From a weather perspective, it wasn't great.
For the most part, it was gray and cold.
Yeah. So I don't know what the question was.
Bonds forged in the freeze of Crawfordsville, Indiana.
Yeah, and if you know Wabash at all, there's no rules. There's only one rule. It's the gentleman's rule. And it works out really well, actually.
It's an all-male college. Have you mentioned that?
I almost ended up playing football at Wabash, and then I said no after I hurt my knee, and also,
And then you play, So, like, it works out pretty well where you're like, you do something stupid, and they're like, were you being a gentleman? You're like, fuck, no. Damn it.
You got me there.
But because there's no, like, code book or, like, handbook or anything, like, Julia would just come, live in my dorm with me. The cleaning lady was awesome, like, totally fine. There's a girl's bathroom.
The women's bathrooms, impeccable.
Sure.
So good.
Unless it's in Phi Psi.
Oh, no, none of the frat houses.
But then, that was a culture shock. The fraternities I had.
Oh, okay.
I got invited to all these lunches and I'm like, free food? Yeah. And then it's, it turned out to be a fraternity recruiting thing. And I was like, I don't even know what Phi whatever means. Like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I'm not a rules guy. I'm not a sign up for the, and So that was a huge culture shock. Somebody asked me to take off my shoes and walk backwards into their fancy room thing. I was like,
oh, that's interesting.
I'm out of here.
I never went through the Greek experience, so I don't really have reference points.
I will not do that.
Other than movies. Like,
I had such good friends at one fraternity. I said, guys, if you can figure out a way to waive pledgeship, I'll join. And they really give it a go. They tried.
Oh, nice.
They tried. No, it was a good time. But, there's alums and like.
Yeah, they gave it the old college try.
They gave it a try.
It's worked out a little bit now.
I spent enough time at one fraternity that what are the recruits, the pledges, thought I would think I was a brother, and so I could tell them what to do.
Oh, so you could boss people around, but you wouldn't let anyone boss you around.
It's called owning a business. Transferable skill.
So was that your first experience? Kind of like, I feel like you're a networking person. Was that your first experience to like a networking in that kind of fashion? Like because I feel like rushing fraternities and maybe it's different
Jake
at Wabash.
is
but like,
a born networker.
Okay,
like
he was just
genuinely
talking
in
to people.
high school. He had a contact with everyone. Like you weren't friends with everyone, but like you had an in with every friend group. You knew every teacher. You were in pretty much everyone's good books. From the get, because you knew what you wanted and you knew how to get it.
That makes sense.
Like,
That's
I have no hard skills.
The whole time I've known you.
And I don't want to have hard skills, so you got to do something.
Okay, so on the point of like finding yourselves here now, and like you were coming and spending the summers or spending that time here, was it always the plan to come to the States? Were you always ready to? It
is ridiculously difficult to get working visas in South Africa. So for Jake, who is not a citizen, he was always on a visa. It is a very protectionist country. It has, from a labor standpoint, that very much comes from apartheid and how most of the movement came from labor movements. And so it's actually incredibly hard as an immigrant to be able to work there. And essentially anyone hiring in South Africa has to prove that you cannot get a single South African to do the job that this immigrant is taking. It's not great. We have a lot of refugees that struggle to find work, and so the informal sector is a bit of a mess. But it was a lot easier for me to move here, immigration-wise, than for Jake. And so that was literally the deciding factor. Also, earning dollars in your young 20s is really great. Yeah. And it can set you up to go back home with a weaker currency than to try and, build a foundation
Scale
for
up
yourself.
The other way. Yeah.
We had, as you know, the U.S. is a family-based immigration system. Right. So, junior year of college, I was like, all right, well, this is great. We're going to have to get married.
Yeah, we had that conversation really early.
Are you down for that? We need a visa. There's one way to do it. The
U.S. government knew we were engaged before I was proposed to, which is why the proposal came as such a surprise, because I was like, the government thinks we're engaged, so we're engaged. Why are you asking?
Yeah, because you're romantic. I thought I'd do
I was like, why are you asking? I've already filed the documents.
We're on the top of Table Mountain. I have a ring. And Julia's like, are you joking?
Yeah, we're already done all
we've
this.
done this. We had these conversations.
You could have done this when you brought the paperwork out.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So on that note, then I read that once you guys got to Indy, one of the things that you were having trouble finding was just literature that was outside of world based.
I mean, literature at all. We had one bookstore in the downtown area, which was Indie Reads. Shout out the OGs. For when I moved here, that was it. You had to otherwise drive to Barnes & Noble over in the Fashion Mall. I couldn't drive for a very long time while I was here. So that was just there was one opportunity to read. Mostly though, I found that it was I think what you're getting at is it was one of the weirdest things about immigrating is that when you are home, people understand the context around you. And so you see me, you see my age, you see my race in South Africa, you know exactly kind of what my familial background is. You kind of understand so much about me from the get, from just looking at me. And when I was here, no one knew any of it. Right. And I thought at least apartheid's a pretty big deal globally. I thought people would get it and they would understand my point of view a little bit better. And I found myself having to explain that over and over again, and it became really exhausting.
How very American of us to not understand.
and just like weird comments about immigrating here too from like liberals who would be like apologizing, and
Interesting.
they're like, I'm so sorry, like you have to, and I'm like, I chose to be here. That's like kind of a little bit infantilizing to assume
100%.
that I didn't make this call with all of the information at my disposal. So that was just like part of it is like, when you're in the Midwest, it feels like sometimes people can forget that there's a full world outside of it. And so that's what I love about reading and just about media in general, because it can introduce you to walks of life and experiences from across the globe. And help you understand other people better. Like from reading more Nigerian literature, I feel like I get my friends whose at least their parents are Nigerian immigrants. I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of understand you better. I know the history of it. I know the context in which your parents chose to move here. And so that makes me understand you better. So that's why I like global literature.
Full bars right there.
Retweet.
So does that then spur you to be like, I want to own a bookstore where I can now be like the active resistor to this idea that we can't have global literature here? Or is there something before that? It's like, because you work in media, like, were there things that you were wanting to explore to try and push back on that here to like get people to see, hey, there's a bigger world outside of Indianapolis or Indiana?
Honestly, before it was political, I just liked books. Like I just enjoyed it, and I just liked learning, and I liked learning about other people. And like once you open a bookstore, you realize how political that is and how people are really excited that you're doing that. But like, it's first and foremost just a thing that I really enjoy doing and enjoy like myself experiencing. And for so much of the store, it's like, well, if I like it, someone else has gotta.
Sure.
And that's like my kind of whole MO with like the selection of books and stuff. Because I'm like, if I think that's interesting, even if I'm not going to read it, if I just think the topic is cool, but I don't have time to or whatever, like someone else is going to think it's interesting too.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not that special, you know. Like people are just people, and if I'm a person who likes it, someone else will too.
100%. You're still special.
Thank you.
Everybody's special in like that unique way. Everybody's like, and they have their thing. Like I will say, and I'm just based on my experience of knowing you, like seeing you work in the store and like what books you're picking, why you pick them. Like you just said, even if you're not going to read it, with the thought of like, oh, somebody else, I think this might be interesting and this is catching my eye. And I think that's a skill that few people have. And particularly when it comes to curation. I don't know a lot of bookstore owners, so I can't really say. But I mean, just having worked here and seen you, the care that I think that you take with it, that is special. That's a quality that few people have. And I think they can have it for their own profession, but like we're drilling down. We're disaggregating the data and the people. And it's because like that's the thing, to me, like that's one of the things that I think sets you above.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So yeah, 100%. I mean, it's only because I just have had the opportunity and privilege to see you do it. And then you also try and tell me how to do it. And I'm like, I don't know if I should put these books on the shelf or in this drawer. So
the alphabet's hard.
The alphabet stumps all of our new employees. It stumped me when I started. Tough. Every single person.
100%. I like what you said about like, it wasn't until you opened the store that you realized that reading or owning a bookstore was political and or could be or carried a lot of politicization. Was there a specific moment for either of you that made you that was like a moment where you realized, oh, this is deeper than just the books and the books that we sell?
I have a moment, I think when we were soft opening, when we had a lot of queer people come in, but one particular customer stands out to me. She was a trans woman, and she had a stack of books by trans authors. And she was just like, I didn't expect to find these ever in person. Like I thought I was going to have to buy them online. And that was like one of the most exciting moments for me, because I was like, oh, this is like, it's not just interesting for me, but it is affirmative for other people.
Yeah.
And so like there's this crossover of interest versus representation, like that is really important for people to see. And she was really young too. So that was just a really neat, like she doesn't have to come of age in a city that doesn't like recognize her.
Sure.
Which is like pretty cool, especially like, and seeing
Yeah.
kids too. And like, especially kids that are younger than the store. When Van comes in,
Sure.
it's just like, he doesn't live in a world where there wasn't 5 bookstores in Indianapolis, and that's
Right.
pretty freaking cool.
Very cool. I will say that he probably will never not be in here for another 5 years because all of the books will be on the floor, and I do not want to pick them up.
There's no rules here.
There's
Ben
no
knows.
rules. Bring your kids.
There's no rules here.
Don't shush your kids when they walk into a bookstore, please. People, like, kids think it's a
Ooh.
library,
Sure.
and then parents are like, shh. I'm just like,
If you've seen,
they
Julia
can have
will,
fun, please.
Julia
Let them
will
have
read
fun
to
in
your
here.
children
I love
and
look at
babysit
this nook
them
that we're
while
sitting in.
while you shop. I won't get, that's not, but Julia just does that.
Yeah.
So there's no rules.
No rules.
Yeah.
What about you? Any moments? I feel like maybe you're already operating at that level every time you read.
Yeah, like actually a moment like literally from last week that I think is good. And I'll give a little spiel on politics or political. Like
Sure.
one, so I studied economics and political science and love social science, and like we're both liberal artsy, and like politics is like a social study of how do people get along and make rules and like live together and work together and set some guidelines. Like that is what I don't want to diminish the importance of capital P politics and the implications, but
Sure.
like, so in that sort of framework, and I'm not as eloquent as Julia, but like there are 2 million books published every year. We have got 4,000 books in here and probably 2,500 titles. Like the selection and the curation is political in the sense of like what you're doing, and you're choosing stories from all over the world and things that just look interesting and good quality. And we try to highlight local independent presses, so
Curation is inherently political.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, we don't do a lot of like online statements, and
Sure.
it's not bad, but like, it's like my goal, and I do the business and the event side, my goal is come into the store. Like, I just want people to come in the store and experience it and learn from Julia and our team. And like, you will walk out with something you didn't expect, whether that's a book or an experience or a conversation, like that's going to happen. So we do author events and kind of traditional things bookstores do, but then we also do all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah.
Like hosting podcasts.
100%.
So my story, though, that was kind of my background. We had an author in last week, Jody Bondi Norgard, who wrote a book kind of about gender stereotypes in sports and around like kind of dolls in sports. Wonderful author, great event. A Colts player, football, a wide receiver, dude, like
Yes.
Oh, Alec Pierce.
Alec
Yes.
Pierce.
Yeah.
Alec
Sorry to
Pierce
that
puts
man.
on his story that I think he was friends with I don't even know. Like he puts on his story,
Yeah.
I'm going to be at Tomorrow Bookstore tomorrow. So we're getting set up for the event, and in roll 2 15-year-old dudes from Greenwood. They walk in, they've look like they've never been in a bookstore before. They're just like, where are we? Ratina and I are setting up. Nobody else is here yet.
Yeah.
And they walk in and we're like, you here for the event tonight? They're like, yeah, is the football player going to be here? And I was like, I think so. Like, I think so. Kid had his Colts shirt on. Like I knew. And they were, just hung out in the back, like literally just Ratina and I. They were 30 minutes early for the event.
That's cool.
And then they hung out. And so then, these kids, I chatted to them. One dude had picked up his friend 20 minutes away. They're from Greenwood, and then had rolled up here, like just to see Alec Pierce, which was cool. But then they got to hang out and sat through an author talk and learned about gender in sports. And I don't know anything about them. If they had not read the book, I knew that. And it was just like we kind of operate on saying yes to things. And like, that's it. Like, I was like, this is exactly what I want. I just want people to come into the store.
Yeah.
And something's going to, they're going to have some experience that they didn't expect. And
Exactly.
Can I also, something that we spoke about really early on was how, and Kaveh Akbar was just in town and said this way more eloquently than I can, but he spoke about the metabolization of literature, or basically just words, and how when you're scrolling, you're kind of consuming these things at such a pace that you can't actually hold on to anything. And what books do is they force you to sit down and think about one thing for at least a couple hours, and you actually get nuance in that respect, and you also get to learn, and it's not so much and he said that it was psycho-spiritually imperative. I love that man. I could listen to him speak all day.
That's some great language. I like that.
Oh, incredible vocabulary. But like how politically urgent it is to pause and to actually dive deep, because so much of these conversations that happen online are in bad faith, but also just not going to go anywhere. And so that's also why we kind of avoid being, I mean, we are very political in fairness online, but like we try not to follow the news cycle too much of being reactionary. And so, because we don't want people to come in our comments and tell us why they agree with us. We want them to come in or disagree with us. We want them to come in and we can have a conversation face to face, but we're not engaging in comment battles because that's literally the antithesis of what books are for.
100%.
So
I absolutely love that. I literally just had a conversation today about like something I'm really interested in. One from a business perspective, but it's like, how do we take our shortened attention spans and make them longer? How do we get them? How do we reverse what has been happening? Like he's talking about, you know, we're in the culture of skim, and we don't really process or even retain anything that we're consuming. And sorry, and yeah, and I'm like, I want to do it because I want to take our clips and get people to watch 60 seconds of an Instagram reel and go now watch 60 minutes of our full podcast episode. And I'm like, okay, maybe instead of doing that, I'm also pushing them to read some books. Cause like, that's literally like, that's the start of like why shows like this exist in the first place, is just because I've read a lot. And I'm like, okay, we need to be having conversations about the things that we're reading. And it's important to have places where you can come in and then have those conversations that aren't driven from the social media apparatus. They start here in the place. I think that's something that's really stood out to me about what y'all have accomplished here, is that this store makes the world local. It makes the globe like a local space for people. And it brings, like you said, all the different ideas and identities and communities and cultures and anything that you can really think of outside of maybe one specific thing into the space. And you can start having those conversations. You can slow down and start to learn and read and process. Firstly, in terms of place and thinking about this idea of place, how do you both define Indianapolis?
I mean, you're looking at me first. Like, first thing that comes to mind is just it's home, right? Like, I've got multiple homes now, but like this has been my home for the last 6 or 7 years. Like, okay, and then that's simple. But also like, well, what does that mean? That means like, I live here, I'm invested here, I've built my life here in the time that I've been here. Like that's kind of just everything that like, what comes to mind for you when you say home? Like, this is my home. Yeah. This is where I build things. This is where I invest my time, a lot of my life, a lot of things I do. Like that's, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of simple, but that's the first thing.
That was literally going to be my word. And I was like, that's too cheesy. I can't say
no,
it.
like, I think it's a great one. It's a good one though.
You know, like,
it's a real one.
Right. Like I can get on my like high horse of like Midwest cities. You're like, all right, it's, my city is great for shipping and it's cheap and it's got a low cost of living and, you know, like all these things. And you're like, oh, cool. Like what city is that? That could be 10 different places. Sure. Like throw that out. And it's like, what is your home to you? What is Indianapolis to you? To me, it's in the life that we've been lucky enough to construct, somewhat on purpose, somewhat out of luck, somewhat just of circumstance. Like I live 10 minutes from our store and can ride my bike around and have built a strong community here. And Julia hates this, but we can go to the gym and 4 people, you know, are going to know who we are. Some random dude this morning at 9 o'clock this morning.
I love this bookstore, but my anonymity is
gone.
At least, and it's like it's such a tiny neighborhood. If I get 5 miles out, no one knows me. Sure. But in this radius of a mile,
yeah, it is, and it's like
which is cool though too.
A big part of that's the store, but it's also like our neighborhood and community. We live on the near east side in Springdale, like. You know, I hang out at Can and I know who sits at the bar at Can and Alan's the guy that like, and everyone knows Alan and he's right. Like, so that, you know, I guess let's keep going cheesy, like community. And that's the other thing that's a big part of the store. but it's something that somewhat intentionally, but somewhat because it exists here and it's not just us, it's a community, there's everybody in it, right?
This is something that major cities kind of scoff at us for wanting, but I think is a really noble thing to want, which is comfort. And I, as someone who grew up in a place where, because of unemployment levels, crime rates are really, really high in South Africa, and it's not a matter of if, but when you will be robbed, when you will be mugged, and it's just, that is what it is if you are living in South Africa. So to like come from a place of heightened vigilance and heightened anxiety to a city where when people talk about the crime in downtown, I just laugh at them because what do you mean? I'm like a woman walking around at night and I'm fine. But like just from the geography of it being so flat that you can bike everywhere and it's incredible to the fact that like, yes, I mean like low cost of living is great. Like I know that people roll their eyes at it, but it is really, it allows me in my 20s to buy a house and to open a bookstore that like I literally could not do in any other space at all. And that is comfortable and it's convenient. And like that is as like noble a pursuit, I think, as any pursuit of anything else. And I am really appreciative of the rest that the city like can afford me.
Yeah.
So
I love that answer. I don't know that anyone, I've never thought about it like that. I don't know that anybody that we've asked this question to has given an answer like that. A place for rest, like to be restful. It's a lot of it creative, a lot of production because you have the opportunities here. Where you may not.
Someone has to make a naptown joke. I got one.
No, we don't have to.
Great, chaos. I won't. I'm not going to.
You can if you want.
I don't want to.
All right. But yeah, I mean, it is like you can access rest, I think, in a way that you can't in a lot of other places. And even for folks from marginalized communities, I think there isn't even a lesser barrier to that rest, which I think is something we don't really think about. And I don't know that I've heard anybody ever talk about. You have to tap into it intentionally. But I think, like you said, like there is something about here that combined with all the other like societal factors, like allows for that. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I had another place question, but you kind of touched on the next place I wanted to go. So we're going to like mold it together. You talk about community, like cheesy word. This is the year of community on the show. I don't think it's that cheesy. I think it's a really important thing. But one of the things that you all have done here has built, like literally watched community grow here. I mean, I was here when the book clubs were getting ready to launch and I've seen them grow. I mean, the CPP book club is a whole nother thing. They might open their own bookstore. I don't know what's going to happen.
Don't give Hallie that idea, please. We need her. We love her.
In Axios Indy this morning. Let's go. Quoted.
It was quoted in it, yeah.
But it is absolutely incredible, I think, to see just in a short time that you've been here in this space, in this particular area of the city. I don't know that many people may know this, but you are literally built on community because you're crowdfunded to be able to make this thing possible. So again, like literally you built on the community of people here.
And WeFunder calls that a community round.
Hey.
Community round. Here we go. So I'm wondering, like, you talked about your anonymity kind of going away in this area. And that's a con and also a pro because it means that you're out here, like you're really outside and like people are coming into the shop and like you're a known presence here. How has your perspective for both of you changed on the people here in Indy since the shop has opened?
Ooh. Do you want me to go first?
I'll go first. People love books. That was something that like, again, like I knew I wanted it. And like so much of what we based it on was like, well, we know we would like it and we can't be the only ones. And then like opening day, we had a line outside the door. And I never saw it because I was so anxious that I was like, if I see those people, I will flee.
Sure.
So I dipped. I stayed right at the register and just saw the people as like they came into the line.
Oh, that video is classic.
But like, it just proved to me that like if you want something to exist the people are there. You just kind of have to put out your little bat signal for them. And that was really exciting because you can get, especially like I was working an office job before, so my exposure to people with like similar interests and hobbies to me were really kind of only in that area.
Yeah.
So to realize that there were so many more people who loved books as much as I do, in the same way that I do, was just really, really exciting.
I find and say the people that speak about Indianapolis the best aren't from here. And like, but then I'll caveat with like, people get jaded in Cape Town. And they're like, Cape Town sucks. I need to go to Johannesburg. First of all, you're wrong. But like that can happen anyway, right? Like that's not an Indianapolis or anything. But the people that are just that's I find promoting and recognizing the assets, like we were talking about this earlier. Everybody can point out the flaws. Anyone can see the roads. Your driver,
right.
Anyone can do that. The people that recognize the pros and the assets of those things and speak about them best aren't from here because you're coming in with another perspective.
Sure.
That said, with the store and what we try to do of just being a space, like if you give people a space, a positive space that's constructive, like suddenly people are like, oh my God, like Indianapolis, we're amazing. We have an amazing bookstore scene here, right? Like, and I like being a small part of that, giving people this community and this space and this area of the city where, like, honestly, we're like Indianapolis bookstores, high quality. There's stores, a lot of new ones, like it's amazing. There's many stores, and I don't know, I use this as a comp. Like, you could put many of the bookstores in Indy in any other city in the world, and they'd thrive. Like, they are world class. Look it up. Now you know what I'm talking about.
Paris.
I made a Reddit post a couple years ago where I was just like, "What?"
My man's obsessed with the term world class.
Because that's what we need to talk about. Like, what in Indianapolis is world class? And people are like, "Well, Indianapolis is not a world class city." And I'm like, "That's fine. I didn't say that because that's whatever. Like, whatever you want to define that.
That doesn't
fine.
make any sense. We're in the world.
But what
does that mean?
Like, what here in Indianapolis could go anywhere and kick ass, and we have lots of those things, and let's recognize those. Like, and so anyways, being a part of that.
We have a 4-yearly violin competition. Do
That's
you know
amazing.
this?
I
It's
did
like
not
the
know that.
violin Olympics.
are here.
And you get to just go watch them kick ass.
For $10.
For
pretty dope.
$10. It's
Unless you
incredible.
get free tickets.
I
Like,
don't know
what
when the
the
next
hell?
one is. Probably only in like 2 years. I wish I knew the full name of it, but you have to go.
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna link it in the show notes. So
There's
check it out.
There's so many, and right now, bookstores, they're world-class bookstores, right? Like sports, obvious one, world-class stuff. There's world-class food here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're reminding me a lot of our conversation with Yusuf, what we did for Epicurean. He said very similarly about
Speaking of
like
a world-class man.
when do people, like, how many world-class things are here in Indy, like chefs and stuff that aren't getting recognition? And it's like, well, that's why we're doing the James Beard thing, just trying to bring people in, just to get
And
the
what a perfect example,
visibility
like
up.
Yusuf could ply his craft in any corner of this small world
Exactly.
and be the best one.
We got to have a full conversation. We will.
Right? And then he's like, I'm doing it here. I'm building shit here. I'm going to support other people and build community here too. And I'm going to be world class. And he didn't say that, but like, that's true.
Yeah.
I love that.
Shout out immigrants.
Shout out to immigrants. Okay, so in terms of community and building place, like you talked about the events earlier, like one of the things I love about the events is you're just like kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And you've had some really
We're trying not to do that as much now.
Well, okay, but in that first year, it was like, what works in a lot of like the poetry stuff, the music stuff, like that have come about here, I thought have been really incredible. And I read in an article, you said, like, I think when the store's getting ready to open, Jake, you said that the pandemic specifically made a lot of people readers again. And it seems like that's continued to carry through. You talked about, people continuing to show up. I was wondering if you had a perspective on like what specifically it is that's continued to keep people reading and coming back.
I'll sort of pitch this to Judy and say, like, one of our perspectives in this, like, we cover a range of things from like the most literary academic sort of things. But then, like our fantasy romance book club, like reading is entertainment too. You can speak to that
Yeah,
more.
I mean, that's pretty much exactly what I was going to say. Book Talk, which is the book community on TikTok, has helped publishing in general. Like,
Sure.
it's just publishing worldwide has seen a boost because of it, which is really great. And most of the books there are what I would call for entertainment's sake. And what we love, like, this is just something that I love learning. I love academic spaces and academic jargon, and I can really get into it. But I also really love reading for entertainment and like everything in between.
Yep.
And so a lot of people can see reading as this incredibly intellectual, moral good. And I think that what Book Talk has helped with specifically is that like it doesn't have to be something that is like eating your vegetables, where it is, you know, it's good for you to do, but like you're going to have to like sit through it.
Right.
And so I think, and what that helps with is then people will see it as entertainment. And so then they're like, okay, I'm kind of getting used to these tropes. I don't really enjoy this as much anymore. I've read the same book kind of over and over again. Let me try this literary fiction first. And then they're being like, oh my God.
Stepping outside of their comfort zone because they've allowed themselves to really get into what they like.
And I think that both sides of the spectrum, if you are only reading academic books, you absolutely need to try out some fantasy romance just to see the other side.
To take a break. Like my brain's working so hard. Like
I think, but it works both ways. I think that you can introduce them to themselves. So that's really like...
yeah, but I mean, so like Julia's background's in film, and like we'll talk about the latest A24 film with the smartest film person, and then like we're out there watching Love Island.
Sure.
Right? Like it's the same thing. It's the same concept.
Well, you can intellectualize anything if you want to. And that is what getting your BA is. It's just like just pretending that something is smart when it isn't.
Sure.
I wrote a whole dissertation on Lost, which actually is very smart.
Julia speaks Norwegian.
Okay.
I like learning.
Just to learn it.
I love it.
I just like learning.
I have a friend who's just like, I just want to learn a language.
We had one Norwegian dude come in whose mind was blown.
Hey.
Yeah, he wouldn't speak Norwegian to me because they're famous for not like, because they're like, my English is so much better than your Norwegian. Like, I'm not going to do that.
And you said, no, we're gonna have this Norwegian conversation.
No, but actually that's part of, back to why I love reading from across the globe, like, and learning Norway was one of it, is that you can learn so much about yourself and your own perspective when you understand someone else's self and their perspective. Like, the amount of stuff that I've learned about English from learning other languages is so cool. And you would never think about English. Like, one of the things, I'm not going to get into it actually, but I was like, I'm about to go down a linguistic rabbit hole with you, but I'm not going to do it. But like, English does some really bizarre things that you don't realize until you start learning other languages. And you're like, oh, they've got rid of all of this like excess, but English for some reason has held on to it. And the same is true.
I've heard it's the most complicated language to learn.
It's so ridiculous. It has so many unnecessary words and sounds. But like reading is the same thing of if you are reading someone else's perspective, not only do you see how similar you are to pretty much everybody on the entire planet and how much more we have in common than we have differences, but you also get to be like, oh, they're that way and I'm this way. And I really like that I'm this way. And that's really neat. And there's something really cool about learning like about yourself from the differences that you have with people that you wouldn't have realized you even had if they didn't contrast it for you.
Sure.
So it's fun. I like it.
I like it. And I like the passion with which you speak about it.
It's one of my favorite things.
We might have to have a side conversation about linguistics one day. And you can just lay it on us. Okay, so we're talking about community, and it is the year of community. We have a recurring segment on the show called Give Them Their Flowers, where we ask our guests to shout out somebody or people that they feel like right now deserve their flowers. Shout out to Madeline McKinnon, Free as Flowers, for sponsoring the segment. You can shout out whoever you'd like. However, I would like you to first shout out former team member Ian Lonigan. If you could say some nice things about Ian, I would love
Ian really needs it right now. He's a Chiefs fan. He's from Kansas City.
Yikes, I forgot about that.
So Ian,
sorry, my dude.
Ian needs roses.
Was one of the smartest people I've ever met. You only needed to talk to him about something once, and he knew everything. Like, he retained information like nobody's business. Just the sweetest, loveliest person in the whole wide world. The greatest first employee you could possibly have. We love Ian. I miss you every day.
But Please read happier books sometimes.
Read happier books.
The sad boy book reader.
Sad gay books is
I mean, listen, it's a lane. It's a good lane.
And it's a really good lane, and lots of people live in it.
Yeah.
But like happy, maybe.
The sad, like you like step out of that zone a little bit.
Right. And
get yourself into
I think it'd be better for him.
That wasn't, sorry,
fiction.
Ian. That wasn't what we were supposed to do. I didn't want to. I shouldn't have done that. Ian, you're great. Come back. Ian is bookseller emeritus. And like I used to have at a bar where I used to work, he can come back and work a shift anytime.
Would crush
great
it.
Great place to be.
Outside of Julia, most knowledgeable person about a book. If you came in and asked for a recommendation, anybody, he would be able to have one. Children's book I saw somebody who was like 80 one time that was in here. He gave a recommendation about something strange. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, how do you do this?
He's a scientist.
And he's like, I'll tell you.
He's a scientist.
Yes.
That's the thing. That's why we couldn't hold on to him.
It turns out science pays a little more.
If we could pay his biotech salary, he would have never left. But we could not do it.
Okay, well, shout out to Ian Lonigan. Super dope dude. I hope. Is he still in Boston?
He's still in Boston.
He moved to an inferior city.
That's right. We can't.
I'm not going on the Boston train. That's nothing to do with Ian. It's no love for Boston around here.
But shout out to Ian. Great dude. And again, shout out to Madeline and Frida's Flowers. Frida's Flowers.
Oh, yeah. All right. You got to answer for this. I had to think about it.
Oh, yeah. I thought you jumped in. That was your contribution was read happier books.
Oh, no. Well, for flowers, we got to give people flowers. Are we there now?
I just gave Ian all of his flowers.
True, but that was dictated to us. Now we're open. Okay. All right.
The floor is open for flowers.
All right. First thing, since I have the floor, is Madeline. I'm waiting for her to start a brick and mortar business.
Oh.
So
hey,
Madeline,
we just talked about this.
2025 goals for you. I'm putting it out there. Because I want to see more dope people that have done pop-ups here start cool businesses. Another thing we try to do here. Flowers are going to Megan Telligman from Indiana Humanities.
Shout out to Megan and the Humanities.
Shout out to Megan, who, and we've had a lot of this in the media and the press and been amazing coverage and people are like, oh my God, there's this renaissance of bookstores and books and readers. Yeah. And like, that is true. But there's also been people like Megan who have been building the community and promoting literary spaces and programs and readers and authors for years. Indiana Humanities, they launched the Indiana Authors Awards and that huge program, which supports and promotes and uplifts local authors, which is amazing. They backed Proof, which launched last year, which I don't know many other states and they're kind of like humanity nonprofits. And those organizations are typically slow and not really risky and they don't really, they fine. They're like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yes. They're starting from a place of yes, let's do it. How can we help? And Megan is a big part of that and the team there. Everyone's amazing. But there's my flowers.
I love it. Shout out to Megan. And shout out to that team at Indiana Humanities. They were super kind to us and they were ready to, I was just like, hey, can we come do this thing that we're doing at events? And they were like, sure.
Exactly.
And I was wait, I thought you were going to say no.
Let's do it. They back the book crawl, which is amazing. Yeah. Proof is amazing. Author events, when we bring authors in, they're supportive and helpful. They were like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about it a lot, but more of this willingness to invest in people who come with the ideas, the creators or the makers or whoever, and not, I'm sure there are bureaucratic hoops they have to jump through to get stuff approved and funded and whatnot, but just being willing to take the risk is 80% of the battle sometimes. And I feel like I just want to shout them out too, because it's important.
Yeah.
All right, so we're coming up on, we've moved faster than I thought.
Did we talk fast?
We've moved long.
I love that.
Yeah, we've moved in a good pace. I know we have things to get to.
Now we're not doing as well as
No, we're doing great. Okay. I feel like we don't have enough time
to
get to all the stuff I want to get to.
Rapid fire.
What I want to get to now, what is your biggest fear right now as a bookseller, bookstore owner?
You have one first? You want me to go?
I'll go first. I think my fear first is for our community. First and foremost, we are losing very good people in the city to states that are more welcoming, and especially our trans community. We already we had a musician like who just wrote a memoir, like talk to us and be like, yeah, I'm leaving next week to go to Seattle because like I can't live in a place where I'm not guaranteed the meds that I need. And that is like my first fear is that we start dwindling in numbers. And not for the sake of the store, but like for the sake of the community that is, for me, what keeps my sanity in difficult times. And so it like gets really sad when and friends who have every right and like for their own safety to leave. So that is my most immediate concern, I think, for the space.
I mean, I just add to that, just even more broadly, just talented people. Like, I mean, we love Indy and we just talked about how much we love it and building community and like being here, but like also don't sugarcoat, we're going to scare off, Indiana is an incredible talent exporter already. From the university and the kind of sort of that kind of education standpoint. It's incredible. Yeah. We already export a lot of talent because people don't see opportunity here from a career or life perspective. And I think from a political standpoint, we're going to do that. We're going to continue to scare off people, like, because people don't have, not all, for people that have the option to go somewhere else or, can compare and contrast places. Like, if we start, like, our assets will start to be diminished. And I think they are from a political standpoint already. And that's just a bad thing for a community is scaring off or making people feel like they're forced to leave who are talented. I mean, doctors and lawyers and people who want to build stuff and small business owners and entrepreneurs. And you don't want to get to a place of like, why would I invest there? Sure. They don't invest in me, or I'm not seeing a reason to invest my life or my skill or my money in this place. I mean, that's a larger than the store answer, but that also has a longer term ramification. Sure.
Yeah. But the store is part of that community. So it is larger than the store, and the store is a part of like the solution, I think. And so I guess that's a follow-up is like, how do you're already doing it in the work that you do. And like you said, you're maybe not ones for political statements online on social media, but like the politics are going to be happening in the pages of these books. What other ways do you resist, particularly what's happening at a local level? Because we seem to be grounds for how can Project 2025 operate on a federal, on a national level?
One of the ways that I think we work is I like to be really loud. I mean, like we said, curation is political. And so like, where my values stand the second you walk into the store. No one who walks in is going to be surprised about any of my political views. But as a business and as a fairly, I've been political my whole life and I was the very loud 14-year-old feminist who would antagonize all of her classmates. And it included Jake. And there's a reason why he started dating in senior year because I calmed down. But like I've been doing this for a really long time and I have really tough skin for it. And so I think that we are a really great space for like, if we can be a beacon that people can throw their hate at instead of people, right? Instead of individuals, I can take that on pretty easily. Like it's really like not going to affect my sense of self or my sense of identity. Sure. And so like, as long as we are loud, as long as we keep raising our voice, we attract attention away from real people just trying to live their lives. And we just had a 1-star review that was homophobic that we turned into merch.
Love it. I loved that whole saga minus the start of it.
Yeah. And it was a way for us to be like, this guy was homophobic for, I mean, like he walked into the store for 2 seconds and huffed and walked out. Like he did not look at the store at all. He just saw one gay book and decided that was enough. And we saw that as a selling point. But it's like when we shout about that, when we make that merch, if we're going to anger anyone, then they're directing it at us. And I'm fairly confident that I can manage quite a lot of it myself. And myself being like us as a business.
Julia went vegetarian at 12.
I did.
For some more context, sorry, that was on my brain for earlier.
It was because of Florida. I visited
of Florida.
Florida and I saw
interesting.
one toddler walking with a turkey leg on a stick. And it was like the size of half her body. And I was just like, that's not right. We shouldn't be doing that.
So you must have not ever been to the state fair then prior to that.
Outside of the store, I have a day job working with entrepreneurs, and like I spend a lot of time try to spend a lot of time helping and working and promoting other small business owners. And Madeline, I'm like, come on in, like let's join the but like I want us to be a model of. We didn't talk about like how we started the store. We were joking about opening a bookstore in August of 2022. That's how it started, and we signed a lease in January of 2023. Like, it wasn't like a long-term plan. It was like we have a need.
Yeah.
We have a solution. Let's build it. That's another story. But like, I want us to be a little bit of an example of that, of like, hey, if you want to do something and build something and be additive to your community and to Indianapolis, like you could do that here. One, I want us to be a model of that. And then two, like on the business side, because I do that, I do that kind of for my work a little bit. Like I'll help you. What do you need?
Yeah. Like,
here's how you do it. Here's how you here's who you need to talk to. Here's, the playbook or here's some advice, whatever it is. And I've been able to do that with a couple other local businesses. I think that's for me just anyways is like I do want to demonstrate to people and help them if they want to do this to say, Indy is a place that you can build things and create the better future that we talk about, right?
Sure.
And whatever that is, and what are your passions, what are your skills, like what does that mean to you? Like, it's financial, it's your life, it's your investment. Like, I just want people to know, and you can start small. Like, it doesn't have to be a business, right? You want to start a podcast here, and then a year or two later, you're doing the cool shit and talking to the best people in the city. Like, that's hard, but you couldn't do that in the same way.
Sure.
Other places.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it'd be different. And I appreciate both those answers because I think it gets back to this idea that's at the root of this year of the show. But I think the show in general is community and being being grounded in this idea of like, we don't have to do it alone. You don't have to build it alone. Like like you said, examples of like, this is what we can do together. Yeah. And then again, the store now becomes a living example of what we can do together. And I think what's really beautiful is that y'all were kind of at the forefront of this like small bookstore renaissance, and just within the last 2 years, specifically in this area,
of course,
in Indianapolis. And so as we get to kind of the end of this conversation that we're having, I want to talk about the Indie Book Crawl, because I think what's incredible about it is that not only are you like highlighting that there are a bunch of local like bookstores locally, like not just here in the city, but like in surrounding areas, but that you have done the legwork to connect these stores together to participate in an event like this as a community. And I think when I think about bookstores in other places, like I don't necessarily think that that's something that happens all the time. And I don't know if there's even logistically it's possible to happen because of like the size or the location or however stuff happens. Yeah. But like I think the book crawl to me is indicative of like a model for how we do community in like big outside the box ways that are also like impactful in like economic ways. Yeah. Or can be. Yeah. So tell us about the book crawl. I talked about it. I'm hyping it up, but tell us how does that ferment, and then how does that get executed? And
Jake is like the founder of our Indie Book Crawl. We by no means thought of the idea ourselves. I think we got it from Chicago has one, Cincinnati has one. Yeah. Shout out them. But Jake likes to be humble about this. So I just wanted to say that like the first one was pretty much all him, and he was wrangling everyone. We've got more volunteers this time around. Right. But before you go into what it is, I just wanted to say
I'm going to go into another roundabout story that Judy has heard several times, which is I'm going to give my other flowers. I'm going to split the bouquet, and I'm going to give the other half to Steve Hall from Tinker, who I've known for a long time. I used to do coffee stuff too. I guess I still do. But a couple years ago, they had kind of, kind of built up the roastery. And there was other craft roasteries starting to open in Indy. And I was like, I was just being a dick. I was just giving him shit. I was like, oh, bro. I was like, it's getting competitive. Like, there's other stores out there. And like, I mean, I've known him since college. I used to run I just build things. I started a coffee club. And he was like, no, you know what? Like, my approach is I'm going to get 100 people to stop drinking Starbucks, to start drinking local craft neighborhood coffee. And of those 100 people, if 20 or 50 go to their local coffee shop and don't drink Tinker anymore, like, one, they're always going to come back.
Right.
They're always going to drink Tinker sometimes. And like, I've still done well.
And accomplished the goal.
Done well for the community. And I was like, whatever, man. then like probably a year ago now, but with the bookstore, I texted him and I was like, you probably don't remember this. I'm sure he didn't, but like, here's what happened. And I was like, that was so wise. And like, that's my strategy of, we want to get 100 people to stop buying books online from rich bajillionaires who I'm not going to talk about, like, whatever. It's not even like,
artists.
Yeah, whatever. So like, but that's my goal. Like, there weren't as many bookstores. People couldn't, you're buying online, whatever. If I get 100 people to come into our store and realize, holy shit, like, this is amazing and it's beautiful and books are cool and I can talk to smart people. And then they live in Sobro and they go to Golden Hour. That's amazing. Yeah. Or they live in Lockerbie, like, go to Whispering Shelf. Amazing. One, they're always going to come back in book crawl, but like, that is my kind of thesis to community building. So as it speaks to book crawl, if I have an idea, I like to do it.
I love it. I asked you how did it started, but I think I was on the original email that you sent to a few people. Like,
right?
Hey, we should do this.
Yeah, it's like, it's starting now.
And then a few people were like, good idea. Like,
yeah, great idea,
like,
Jake.
Go for it. And I was like, well, shit, like, I'm good at sending emails. And that's what, listen, young professionals, if you send emails good, that's a lot of your job, generally speaking.
Never will.
Well, that's true. It's not the only way. Some
It's
people have thousands of unread emails. So yeah, January of last year, I knew there was other cities doing this. Cincinnati started one, was really successful. Chicago runs one. And I talked to both of them and I said, like, tell me about your book crawls, what worked, what didn't work. And I said, great, we're doing it. We have access to incredible, talented design. Shout out to Mitch Brown, who does our design, who built a brand. I'm a person, like, I want to launch big. And not for the sake of like, oh, let's be successful by being huge, but like I'm not an incremental person in that way. So I was like, let's have a brand, let's have a design. I know what doesn't work for some other book crawls. Let's do it. And in the same way, like, that's community building. So, I mean, I started in January of last year and we did the crawl in March. A lot of it was just emails. But like, stores were on board, right?
Yeah.
What was the downside in the first year? Like, the first downside was nothing happened. Cool. I wasn't asking for anything. They pitched in some prizes.
Yeah.
That to me proved our thesis around people read, people love books, people love their community bookstores, people love bookstores. Like, that proved our theory and then helped us as a bookstore community also build. Like, I could promote all day long with one thing and another store's promoting this. Like, we all came around that. Honestly, we got so much organic press. The media was awesome. Like, the hype around the first one was insane. Over 2,000 people participated. I would tell you from our store's perspective, March was our best year last year. Not December, not Christmas. Shout out Christmas. Like, and I know that other bookstores did the best days or the best weekends of their business history, like ever other stores had. The fun down in Garfield Park, Pen and Pink Vintage. We weren't ready either. Yeah. Like, none of us knew how busy it was going to be.
Sure.
And Laura from Pen and Pink is like handwriting gift cards, certificates for people to come back later. I mean, it was just a mad mess. But then it's amazing community of readers and bookstore, but nobody cared.
Yeah.
They weren't mad that we were out of stock. We had nothing here.
It was one of the most joyous days to be in the bookstore. The energy was insanely high. And I just don't, like, we weren't expecting anything. We just nobody had enough books, number one. We were pulling out those return piles real quick.
Yeah.
But like, the amount of joy that people were just bringing into the store was so cool.
Yeah. So I'll promote 2025. There are 28 bookstores on the crawl.
What is that from last year? There was 21,
23.
23, okay.
and that included several literary organizations that aren't on the crawl. We're doing a bingo this year. So another activity, shout out for the bingo. That's going to be fun for all the literary organizations. There are 28 bookstores within a 45-minute radius of, like Google Maps, Tomorrow Bookstore, 45-minute radius. Like we just picked it, right?
Yeah.
Like 28 bookstores, March 20 to 23rd. I mean, there's going to be thousands of people there. People are taking PTO. Go with your friends. You don't have to spend any money. People will buy books, but like it's free to play, free to participate. And honestly, like in a good way, I've now talked to several other book crawls around the country, and like same thing. Like let's be a model here. Let's be out in front and lead and do cool shit and have fun.
I love that the inspirations were Midwest based as well. Shout out to Chicago and Cincy. I love
absolutely.
both those cities for other things, but we're in the NAP, so we're going to do it that way. And you did do it big, and I'm excited for 2025. I think I was not here. I think there was a wedding when this happened last year, and I was not
They should have
physically here.
canceled.
They should have
I
canceled.
told them to cancel, and then they moved to
incredibly
Indiana. The
disrespectful.
wedding was in Cincinnati. So
Give them my email. We can fix that this year.
I love it. I'm excited for it. Anything specific that people should know outside of what you just told them as they get ready? This is a couple weeks now.
bit.ly/Indy Indie Book Crawl 2025. Everything's there.
INDY, That's the order.
INDYINDIE.
Right? And like, all right, this is our main page. It's a Google form. I'm like, guys, like next year, like honestly, there's so much on there now.
We definitely
We've got
need
sponsors
a
and we've got
landing page.
partners in Indiana Humanities and Budler MFA are partnering with us, and we've got sponsors and we got gift prizes. Like, I was like, next year we need a website.
Hey, year 3. That's when there's 30 bookstores at least.
But I'm not
and a
like, count me
website.
out. Like somebody else will do it, right? Like
You launched it.
I started.
You sent the email that got this ball rolling.
You send the emails, you start it, and
You
then
were the spark
then
that
you do it
ignited
again.
the flame that was the first resistance or whatever that is from Star Wars.
No,
It's beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
Did you write that?
I did not. I think Oscar
Claim
Isaac
it.
improvised it.
Claim it. So no one remembers.
I love it. Book crawl. I forgot already. bit.ly/Indy INDY book crawl.
2025.
NDIE, baby.
INDIE.
2025 at the end.
2025 at the
to
end.
go to the last year's
Yeah.
one. See, right? Like,
Do not forget it.
We've
Bitly,
made this
come up
really
with a better
easy for people.
idea.
I don't know what the problem is.
all right, I'm going to put this out here. This is how I do. This is how we started the store. I just started telling people, hey, we're going to open a bookstore, so that if we didn't, it'd be embarrassing. So that's what I'm going to do here.
I actually genuinely highly recommend that. So many big things in my life. Before I shaved my head, I told my friend, and then I was like, well, I can't be a coward now. She's going to think I'm a coward.
All right. Well, you
Well,
got
wait,
us
well, what
to
I'm going to say is, I'm putting this on records, is that there will be a website for Book Crawl next year.
Okay, great.
So
That
now if there's not, it'll be embarrassing for me.
doesn't count for this next question. I got 2 more questions.
Okay,
for you.
sorry.
Sorry.
What are 2 things that you want to put on, or what is one thing each that you want to put on record right now to make sure that you now do later this year or whenever that you need to accomplish it? And it can't be the website for the book crawl.
Yeah, it's too boring, honestly. All right, so mine, since Julia's thinking, and this is actually, I mentioned this a little bit, but is a goal. One of the things we do in our space is we host pop-ups for other makers, creatives, local businesses, people trying to side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
And like my goal with that is that I want to host the next small business owners. I want to be like 3 years ago, we said yes to them. We were the first people, the first one. We do this with local authors too sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, come and make your sales here, use our space, use the customers. So it'll be Madeline, because now she has to open a business to make my thing right, which is I want to see, I want to see at least 1, 2, 3 businesses pop up or launch that we've hosted here before.
Love it. I know you'll be working behind the scenes to make it happen.
I know, now I have to. Like, what am I supposed to do about that? How am I going to make that happen?
Yeah, that's totally out of your control. I am working on writing more. So
Okay.
I have something in mind that I am writing, and I would like to be halfway done by the end of this year.
Ooh, okay.
50%. I was like, that's too vague. Let's put numbers behind it. Then you did.
Nope.
All right.
I like it. You're a numbers guy, so I know you
50%.
want
Halfway
I know
done.
you want that data. Okay,
That's
I'm here for
a
that.
little bit of a cop-out with a book, because halfway is what is halfway.
I've written
Look at him trying to
I've
push you.
written
Right
the outline. There is an outline.
Well, you can have 75 pages written and be like, that's halfway. I'll do 150. That's good. That's fine.
It could be a poetry book. That's
I
a
know,
lot of poems.
It's not.
150.
It's not.
Dang. Okay. I like it. 50%. That's
50%.
50% on record. Madeline, you have to have a brick and mortar. And then 2 other businesses to be
Jake's
named.
giving someone else homework.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, everyone.
Jake's going to help you. So
Give people flowers for me and start a business.
there we go. Jake, Julia, thank you for inviting us into your space.
Thank you,
Sitting
Patrick.
and having
Thank
this
you for
conversation.
coming.
There are more conversations, I think, to be had. And I actually just thought of a pop-up idea that we can talk about later.
Yeah, send me all your pop-ups. Let's do it.
But as we exit out of here, talking about the book crawl, obviously that's what we want people to go to and participate in. How else do we support you, follow you, find y'all after we leave here?
At Tomorrow Bookstore on Instagram. Come right into the store and talk to me about linguistics. That is supporting me emotionally. Anything else?
I'll put out my email is jake@tomorrowbookstore.com.
I like it.
And as I said, I have no hard skills except emailing people. So if you want to talk, let's talk, right? And or come in. That's all it is.
Yeah, come into the store, 882 Mass Avenue.
Yeah.
100%. I appreciate you both. Feel very privileged to know you, and I'm excited to see you.
Ask us questions, we'll talk. Absolutely,
yeah.
it's easy.
We love the sound of our own voices.
In all
if
seriousness,
anything else.
thank you for having us. This has been great.
100%.
You're building some cool shit too. So
I love having a
appreciate it.
microphone in front of me. Thank you so much
We're gonna
for
make
this
it happen
opportunity.
More. 100%. For everybody else, episodes every Tuesday on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Conversation Piece Pod. For everything else, Open Door. Go click on the Open Door if you want to learn more or participate. I do believe we're booked out through February and March, so it's going to be popping off for that, but we want to talk to the community. We got merch. Your community shirts are still available, so get those. 50% of each shirt goes to a family directly impacted by the fires in LA. And other than that, I think that's about it. I don't think I have any other announcements. We've got a lot of really great conversations coming up too this month. So this was awesome. It's a great kickoff. I can't wait to share them. For everybody here, John Overton and Popular Rapture on the audio, Mike Lee and Mike Lee Productions on the cameras, Jake Budler, Julia Breakey, Tomorrow Bookstore in the space. We're on Mass Avenue. I'm Patrick Armstrong, and this has been Conversation Piece.
Patrick.
See y'all soon.
Yay.